Morning, everyone. My name is Jiradet. I would like to present about analysis of statistical method currently used in toxicology journals. So, first, I would like to tell you about related to inconsistent and inappropriate use of statistical method. For the first one is a cutoff for being large sample. Number two is appropriate measure for center tendency and dispersion of the data. And number three is testing assumption for the use of parametric approach. So the first one is a cutoff for being large sample. Inappropriate, usually use of the statistic method are frequently witnessed in clinical and biological journals. This is this issue is especially of critical importance in toxicology, since inference drawn from statistics are frequently referred for enacting regulation, establishing guidance or determination of drug safety. However, in many published papers in toxicology journals, sample size and statistical method have been frequently selected without proper justification. Like I said, it usually establishing guidance or determination of drug safety. So it would be without proper justification. So by many publisher usually select without proper justification by themselves, right? Sorry. So in clinical study, some guideline regarding the sample size has been referred either 25 or 50 as a cutoff for being large sample. So it would be good if there are 50 being a large sample, right? Yet no obviously guidance has been provided in the area of experiment statistics to our best knowledge. So, granting that unlike clinical study where participants diverge greatly, the baseline the baseline characteristic of the experiment animal in breed or outbreed or cultured or monoclonal cells are tightly controlled and homogeneous. However, small sample size still raise concern in case of employing parametric method in differential statistics to determine group differences. Appropriate measure for central tendency and dispersion of the data. So this uh, so this I would talk about data are usually described and represented by measuring the central tendency and the dispersion of the data. Although mean is usually we use in a lot of paper by average of variables, right? And the median is a value located in the middle of the list of variables, and the last one is the mode that are most often occurring value. They are all varied measure of the center tendency. One becomes more appropriate to use than others based on skewness of the distribution of variable. So mean is the most like I said that before. Mean is the most popular measure to central tendency is especially vulnerable to outlier. Trust median might be a better measure for central tendency. So in the description of the data dispersion, standard deviation, we call SD, and standard error mean, we call SEM, are often confusedly used even though their logical purpose are clearly different. So the standard deviation is a measure of variability of individual value, whereas standard error mean represent the species of sample mean. So SD should used to describe variability of parameter, whereas standard error mean should be used for hypothesis testing for the sample mean. Okay, the standard error mean drop as a sample increase, and according the size of the standard error mean is usually less than the SD, marking the data appear more reproducible and consistent. Thus, using a standard error mean could underestimate the variability of individual parameters. Last one is about testing assumption for the use of the parametric approach. So, when inferential statistics are conducted, a null hypothesis is tested, and the hypothesis is either rejected or fail to be rejected based on test statistics at this point. So, if assumption of knowability are not met, for example, the data are severely skewed or sample size are small, then the mean and SD or the mean and the standard deviation of the data do not properly represent either central tendency or the dispersion of the data. Hence, non-parametric approach which make fewer assumptions or to raise efficiency should be considered. However, no mobility uh, no mobility assumptions are often not conducted, and parametric approach inattentively used. So you can see the figure two, the figure one. I didn't put it because it don't mention about the statistic method a lot. So I just keep figure two because of the time is a little. So the statistic method used in toxicology journals by you can see distribution of measure used to describe summary statistics like uh, figure A is a central tendency, so it has a mean, median, and etc. So you can see 95% is mean, and lower is a median about 3%, and 2% is etc. That show the distribution of the measure used describe central tendency of the data endpoint. Okay, so the figure 2 of B is a dispersion. You can see SD standard deviation, SEM, like standard error mean, quartile, and etc. So you can see a lot of standard deviation is about 55, 58, sorry, 58%, and standard error mean is about 34%, and quartile is 4, and etc. is 4. So they show the distribution of measure used to describe dispersion of the data endpoint. Okay. ISD is the standard deviation, and SE is standard error, and SEM is standard error of the mean, like I said before. So the figure 3 is describe of the inferential statistic. So you can see figure 3A is a inferential statistic perspective and the perspective statistic only. It a lot of this review usually use inferential statistic by 82%, and descriptive statistic is only 18%. So this figure describe about proportion of the endpoint conducting inferential statistic by a descriptive statistic and this inferential statistic. So B is a classification of endpoint conducting inferential statistics. So they use p-value, and p-value you can get from the ANOVA software. So they use two group and more than two group parametric. Usually two groups use t-test, well test, and pair t-test. And non-parametric is usually use mean Whitney test and chi-square test. But if you get a lot more than two group or two factor, you can use one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA, or Kruskal, Willis, and Fryman test. So you can see the total number here. You can see it. So paper usually use more than two groups, so they have total number more than 29 is about 64, and use only two group is 29. So the total they use of ANOVA P value is 93. As you can see, so the final is that the statistic method. Statistic method is very important thing that you usually use by follow by the experiment of your of your research. It up to the research. Maybe a cost or time that you test your sample, right? Okay, thank you.